Hey everyone, I hope you're having a great day. So, two things before we start. One, if you find value in this video, give it a like and subscribe to my channel. And two, I would really appreciate your feedback. Let me know what kind of content you would like to see going forward. And I would really appreciate it if you wrote down some questions down below in the comment section. I want to do some sort of Q&A format video in the future where I'll address your specific questions. That would help me out a lot. But now let's talk about what's happening in this painting. This is acrylic on paper, similar to the previous video that I posted. And in this video, you're gonna see that I'm mostly gonna be focused on midtones and really trying to get that vibrant color in the flesh tones. The transitions between the midtones and the darks are gonna be very subtle, but the transition between the midtones and the lights are gonna be a lot harsher. You'll start to see that as we go forward. All of the colors that I'm working with right now that I mixed are in that orangey, red, yellow area. They're all pretty warm colors, but you'll start to see when I start working into the highlights, you'll start to see some of these colors get a little cooler. And this is something that I talk about a lot. I always try to break down mentally, I try to break down the values into shapes, and that really helps me bring the portrait to life. In these initial stages, all you're seeing is shapes next to shapes, so you're not really seeing the whole picture. But that's something that I would recommend for you guys to do, is not focus too much on making it look realistic off the jump. You can focus on those details towards the end, but in the beginning, try to look at the shapes and try to look at the values. And this is also something that I talk about often. Don't be afraid to get looser than you're comfortable with. And this is something that, I know one can struggle with because I did for a long time. Try to paint as loose as possible in the beginning and really focus on the values and the shapes and the color that you see individually. Kind of break the portrait into sections, into pieces, and because you can always get tighter, you can always blend later on. So it's better to preserve the richness of the color from the beginning, because that'll make it easier to tighten up towards the end once you have all the colors and values laid down where they need to be. Now I'm starting to work on the hair, and you can start to see that I'm not thinking about the hair as just this big dark shape. I'm breaking it apart so that within the darkness there's lighter values, darker values, cooler darks, warmer darks, and you really start to see the differences between each. I think this is important to understand because our brain often thinks of what it knows, and because it thinks it knows something, you won't look and actually see those subtleties. So sometimes you'll think, oh, this is hair and it's dark, so you'll just paint the whole thing one dark shade and maybe do some outlines and things like that and think you've done justice. But if you really start to look and pay attention to the subtlety of the values, then the painting becomes a lot more interesting, I found within my own work. So now I think we have a pretty good picture of these larger shapes, larger values. I think it's a good time to start working with a smaller brush and start getting these details and these specific facial features into the painting. I think it's important to really look at what's happening here. The eyes that I'm painting, they're a lot darker. The eyebrows, they're not the same color as the eyes or the eyelashes. They're a lot lighter within the value, and you can start to see that they're a little more green beside that strong flesh tone that's a bit more orange and red. So I think it's important to look at those things too. The same thing I was talking about before, where we think that we know what this is supposed to look like, so we skip the actual looking part of painting where you're paying attention to those subtleties. And here we're getting into one of my favorite parts, which is putting that highlight in the eye, that light being reflected from the outside world into this figure's eyes. Now I'm kind of looking at the specific details and things that'll really make the figure come to life. You start to see in the hair on the right hand side, it's a bit greener, more yellow. On the left hand side, it's a bit more blue and purple. So it's good to play around with your colors. You never know what you're gonna get, so it's good to really, have fun and enjoy the painting process and try to change things up every time that you work, because you never know what you'll discover. Okay, so now I think we're at a pretty good point to come to a close. Again, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And as I mentioned before, if you have any questions, please write them down below. I'd love to address them in a future video as I'm talking over my painting process. So that's pretty much it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.